The endgame of Gunfire Reborn is full of new exciting things to try on your adventures, so much so that it can be a little confusing when it all gets dumped on you. As part of my Gunfire guide on reincarnation mode, I'll be explaining spiritual blessings and telling you which ones to grab and which ones to avoid. I'm Eotidiss, shapeshifter from another dimension, coming to you today in my nature-themed bunny form to give you this information to destroy the game. First off, what are spiritual blessings? They're passive buffs you can buy with your meta progression currency, Soul Essence. You get them from vendors called Spiritual Remnants at the start of Acts 1, 2, and 3. They offer you a selection of 3, but you can only take 1. Only the first one allows you to reroll your choices. There are a lot of blessings in the game, with many being character specific while others are more general in their use. You can find them here in the logbook. Just go there and find your spiritual blessings here. You can look at the exclusive ones, meaning that they are unique to that character, like here's Albai's, the Crown Prince, or the general ones which are available to any character. Exclusive ones follow a similar pattern between the characters. You'll have one that revolves around each of your character's ascension trees, and a fourth one that's just generally themed to the character. If you like your character's primary attack, then there's going to be at least one that deals with that. Their secondary will have one, and then whatever that third tree does, there'll be one for that as well. And these are really good. They're powerful, they're transformative, and they can be the cornerstone to your entire run. I'm not going to talk about each one of these because they're so different and specialized to the characters that I think it should be talked about in a character-specific video. Instead, what we're going to talk about are all of the general blessings and what you should use them for. I'll explain what a blessing does, if it's good for a skill damage run or a weapon damage run, better in the early game or the late game, whether it's stronger in near reincarnation 1 or 9, and if I think it's good overall. At the end, I'll give some tips on some things you could do to get the most out of your blessings. Feel free to use the timestamps to jump to the blessing that you're curious about, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell just to see more stuff like this in the future. With that, let's jump into it. First, I'm going to talk about blessings that deal with economy, things like making money and getting items. Let's kick things off with Jackpot. It gives you a wad of money and increases all money you get. Money on its own isn't that strong, but it can be useful if you have the right scrolls. You can benefit from money on a skill run with Riches Privileges or on a weapon run with Unfettered Will, or both with Extravagant Consumption, which can be further aided by getting other money multipliers like Devil's Covenant or Hidden Treasure. While I wouldn't want to take this blessing as a starter, it's better to get earlier than later to get more of that copper increase. I don't feel like I usually need extra money in order to win my runs, and the power increase from Jackpot, even with the scrolls that I mentioned, doesn't feel as good as some other choices. For that, it's hard to recommend at any level of reincarnation unless it's on a very niche run being carried by your wallet. You should probably avoid. Next up is Steady Profit. This blessing modifies a new NPC you'll be running into in reincarnation mode called the Phantom Peddler. With him, you can exchange soul essence for enhanced scrolls and weapons. Enhanced scrolls are generally just better versions of the existing scrolls, and enhanced weapons have an added modifier that pumps their base stats. Normally, the Phantom Peddler has 3 weapons and 1 scroll in stock, but this blessing makes it 2 weapons and 2 scrolls along with a reroll. Getting enhanced scrolls can be very useful for either skill or weapon damage runs, and if you do take this, it should be earlier so you get more uses out of it. The problem is that you're spending essence on a blessing that makes you have to spend more essence to get enhanced stuff, when there's better ways of doing that, which we'll talk about later. Because of that, I'm going to tell you to stay away from this one. Eye of Providence reveals vaults and chests on your minimap and gives an extra red chest each act. This is the worst blessing in the game. It's not hard to find vaults and chests, you just have to walk around looking for them. The extra chest is at the end of the act before the boss, so it doesn't even help you until long after you took the blessing. On top of that, the chest might not even have anything relevant to your run. I can't think of a single reason to ever take Eye of Providence. Supreme Craftsman allows you to reroll all inscriptions on a weapon up to 3 times per crafty man you run into. This blessing is good for when you're trying to get a run with a specific weapon's unique inscription. The problem is that it's still totally random whether you get what you're looking for or not. You can reroll the same weapon a bunch of times and never get what you're looking for. Even further, the number of inscription slots on a gun is tied to the level it's dropped at, so you'll get better odds rolling later because there's more slots on the gun. But rolling on a gun you get later means you won't have as much time to roll on it or enhance it as you would have had if you got an earlier gun. Clearly, this doesn't do much for skill runs, and saying it's good in the late game is debatable. However, there's nothing going to come close to making you able to consistently get that specific craft you're looking for at any level of reincarnation. If that's what you're looking to do, take this. Otherwise, stay away. Craftsman's Inheritor. This basically lets you do all of your crafting for free, but you take a damage penalty for having more than 20 scrolls. I honestly feel like this one sucks. All it really does for you is save you some money, but as I already said, I don't feel like money is a big issue on most runs. Taking a damage penalty for having more than 20 scrolls is just awful, because the benefits from crafting almost never come near what you get from just a handful of good scrolls. You might also think that you can use this in combo with Enhancement Lover to get infinite upgrades, but the cost comes back after the first 3 uses. Even if you're willing to put up with limiting yourself to 20 scrolls, you're going to be stopping to micromanage your list, and for what? A few extra copper here and there? This blessing is way more hassle than it's worth. Hard pass. Occult Booster gives you a 1 in 5 chance to have a scroll drop as enhanced instead of normal. This even applies to regular peddlers, even though it doesn't say that in the text. This is a much better way of getting enhanced scrolls compared to steady profit, even though sometimes the random feels like it's working against you. Depending on the scrolls you get, it can be good for either a skill or a weapon run. Getting it earlier is way better than late, so there's more chances for it to drop good stuff for you. While it's fine at any point in reincarnation, it's particularly good in later difficulties because more scrolls will drop from events. Overall, this is a pretty good blessing to take if you're looking to lean on enhanced scrolls. Ultimate Firearm makes it very likely that weapons will drop as enhanced. On top of that, all weapons have at least one exclusive inscription. This is another blessing that's alright if you're looking to have a run with a very specific weapon and inscription, but much harder to force to be what you want. I feel like enhanced weapons generally aren't that impactful unless you get the specific bonus you're looking for and with good rolls. It just doesn't feel very likely, and what you get for your effort isn't a lot. What's more useful about this blessing is getting one forced exclusive, but you'll be kicking yourself for taking this blessing if you get the scroll Masterful Craftsmanship. While this isn't a terrible choice, it's not one I'm going to recommend as long as Supreme Craftsman exists. Scrolls Master is a blessing that requires you to have the Spiritual Link mode active. It's one of the bizarre dream settings, which I'll talk about in a future video. For now, just know that this mode gives you extra bonuses for having sets of scrolls. This blessing gives you 3 scrolls that are all enhanced and part of a set. At first glance, that might sound useful, but it really isn't. The main problem is that you don't choose what link you get. You might be handed a bunch of scrolls that have nothing to do with your run. On top of that, the game doesn't check if you already have the scrolls, so you might get duplicates. Even more, this blessing can't give you scrolls that combine with guns or character ascensions, which are often the coolest spiritual links to get. I find it really hard to justify taking this one-time payment of 3 enhanced scrolls compared to most other blessings. Don't recommend. With the economy blessings done, let's talk about survivability, starting with Fake Death. If you ever played Borderlands, this is basically the fight for your life scenario. If you would have died, instead you have 10 seconds to get a kill in order to avoid going down. If you do, you stay up and you get a little bit of invulnerability. This blessing only has a 45-second cooldown, meaning you can just wait between rooms to let it get recharged before you go into the next one, so you can use it more often. Once you have this, you're going to find it really hard to die. My only real problem with Fake Death is that you're essentially betting on yourself to go down. If you never go down, then this kind of feels wasted. I also feel like taking this on later reincarnation levels is a bad idea, since you might not clear rooms before it refreshes. I recommend this because it does exactly what it's there to do, but it might be a crutch that you'll have to stop using in harder runs. Battle Scarred gives you a decent bit of HP regen and damage resistance. This works really good if you found yourself some extra HP either from scrolls like Flesh and Bones, Sanguine Relic, Veteran, or Fight for Immortality, or any of the chests that also give it out. This blessing makes you very tanky, and you'll be able to shrug off most hits. The only issue here is the same as it was for Fake Death. This is a defensive trait most of the time, which feels like a waste. If you have a character or a build that can abuse taking damage to deal damage, then this might be a handy enabler for that. However, there's almost always going to be a better way to build off those interactions than with Battle's Guard. Without something to do damage, you can't really start with it, and getting it midway feels like a loss, which makes it really hard to recommend, especially at higher levels of reincarnation. These next few blessings are well-rounded in that they give bonuses in a bunch of places. We'll start with Overconsumption. You basically start out with a huge boost to your damage, dash cooldown, primary cooldown, movement speed, and life. Each time you get a scroll though, you'll lose a little bit of that bonus. This one is incredibly strong, as the amount you lose is almost never more than what you get from having another scroll. This is a fantastic starter, and can carry you to the endgame and doesn't require much thought at all. And unlike Craftsman Inheritor, getting too many scrolls doesn't end up punishing you. You just won't have the bonus anymore. I have to give this a strong recommendation. A Good Man is a multiplayer exclusive blessing that is very good. It requires a bit of work, but it definitely pays off. You get a buff to your HP regen, move speed, and damage for every stack, and you get a stack for reviving a teammate or being revived. You can abuse this by having one teammate go down a bunch and just picking them up over and over again. It's a little annoying to have to do this setup at the start of each act since you lose the stacks at the beginning of each one, and whoever is the one taking one for the team is going to have a lot of death stacks on them, which means they'll die out faster if they ever go down during the run. However, the boost you get from maxing this out is really good at all levels of difficulty at any point in the run and for any run you're doing. Highly recommend. Copycat essentially lets you steal enhancements from enemies that you kill, and they stack up to 3 times with each stack lasting a minute. The bonuses can be very strong and do anything from making you move faster, increase your life, hit harder, give elemental effects, and more. The blessing and curse of Copycat is that the stacks even persist through stages, meaning that if you move fast enough, you can snowball all of your kills in order to keep obliterating your foes. This can lead to you sort of speedrunning the game and might make you a bit of a nuisance in multiplayer if others don't also have Copycat, but it's undeniable that this is a strong choice, especially in later reincarnation difficulties when there's far more enhanced baddies to take down. Plus, it's really fun to be zooming around when you're stacked up. Highly recommend. Okay, this next batch deals with your primaries and secondaries, but in a more generalized way than with the character-specific ones. First up is going to be Ultimate Gambler. This one is truly one of the most solid options you can take. Sure, it doesn't immediately pay out with big damage or anything, but it does make it much easier to get the exact character build you're looking for. Taking this early almost guarantees that you'll have the exact ascension list that you're looking for, so you don't end up having to take a bunch of choices that you would have never wanted throughout the run. While it's not the strongest choice, it's never a bad one. Honest recommendation. Field Proficiency is another solid choice. You get Lucky Shot and cooldown reduction for your primary and dash for each elite and boss killed through the run. It caps out at 10 stacks, which feels like a lot in earlier reincarnation levels, but the later difficulties will have you reaching that in no time. Since it gives Lucky Shot and cooldown, it's good for both skill and weapon runs. I don't think this makes for a good starter, since it won't help you get those first few elite kills, but it's definitely worth it in the mid to late game if it comes up. I'd give this my recommendation. If you're doing a secondary skill-based run, Skill Freak is hard to beat. There's not much to say. This just has so much potential to crank your numbers way up. The bonus here is multiplicative, meaning that it multiplies other damage bonuses instead of adding on to them. In other words, it's very effective. If your secondary ability is what you're using most, this is for sure the blessing you should be going for. Very strong, I recommend. Endless Assault is another secondary-based blessing. This one gives you a bigger capacity of them and also regenerates them. Typically, I consider Skill Freak to be the better one, since it makes each of your attacks stronger instead of just giving you more of them, but there are certainly situations where raining down a torrent of skill uses is more valuable to your build than just doing one big hit. Double Exhilaration is a scroll that can make this blessing feel a little redundant in many cases, or it might make your run even more insane depending on how you're blowing through those skill uses. Starting with this makes it easy to spam those moves, and it can be useful at any difficulty. This gets a recommendation. Let's wrap up the rest of these with all the other odds and ends I couldn't find a place for, starting with Armed Caster. This blessing is one of the strongest you can get if you're trying to do a skill damage run and don't mind holding onto a sniper rifle. With the amount of bonus you'll be getting from this, you might not even need to shoot it since your skills will hit so hard. You can really push the bounds of this blessing by getting the combined Crit X Gemini inscriptions and also finding the scrolls Glaze Sight and Hawkeye Sight. The scaling on this bonus can get higher than most on the list. It's easy to start with, can close a game out, and is relevant at all difficulties. There's not a way I can't recommend it. Skilled Trick occupies a very niche spot in that it only really works with weapon runs and only if they specifically have a weapon skill. Weapon skills are essentially anything that a gun does other than shoot or scope in. Guns like the Wheel Saw or the Star Ring that let you rapidly fire those abilities will keep your stacks up. At the maximum, you'll have 200% lucky shot, which is a huge boost to your damage with guns. With the right gun, you can use this at any stage of the game or difficulty and do just fine. I give it a recommendation. Counterviolence can be a little counterintuitive. It gives you +1 to your crit multiplier and also makes it so that you have a 50-50 chance of critting even when you shouldn't have. Some people would use this just to eke out a little more crit damage, and that can be fine. Where this really shines though is in the gun runs where you can't get crits. As I said in my tips video, there are some weapons that can do crits and some that can't, and this would let them crit half the time for double damage. That's not a whole lot, but with scrolls like Penetration Bullet or Skill Booster, it could mean the difference in being able to use them at all. All that said, I often feel like this is a win more option since it just helps you optimize a few things instead of really helping you push you over the edge. For that, I don't really recommend it. First Strike lets you do more damage with your gun for how much ammo is left in the magazine. This one is usually not that helpful early on, but can be amazing with a few complementary scrolls or certain characters' ascensions. If you get things like Genesis, Against the Flow, or Advanced Depot, you'll keep more ammo in the magazine for your bonus. Throw in a shared capacity Gemini on some of the larger magazines, and you can start pushing some hefty numbers. As long as your build is down for spray and pray, you'll see me giving this a recommendation. In my opinion, Painkiller is one of the best blessings around. The way it works is that anytime you cause one elemental effect, you cause them all, including their hybrid effects. Also, if any were to affect you, you'll instead get a bonus. Being able to apply massive amounts of manipulation will make clearing mobs a breeze, and the miasma and explosion damage will tear through elites and bosses. This also makes it so that you don't need to have the right element, as you'll always do all the effects. If you're doing anything even slightly elemental, this is incredibly helpful. A very strong recommendation. And now, the last and probably least helpful blessing, Royal Guard. This makes it so that an elite spawns in the last room before you travel to the boss of each act. While killing elites is always helpful, this blessing was made very redundant by the bizarre dream mode called Mysterious Jokul. That modifier does almost exactly the same thing and more. So much so that when you have that mode active, you can't even get this blessing. If you ever feel like you need to hunt down more elites in your runs, then just turn on Mysterious Jokul. Get this blessing out of your choice pool and do yourself a favor. Stay away. Now that you know what all the blessings are and what they do, let's talk about some ways to get more out of them. Up until reaching reincarnation, there wasn't a way to lose soul essence on a run. No matter what, you could die and make it out with even a few coins in your purse. Now, you might go into a run, spend some soul essence, and die before winning it back. It makes it feel like you're betting on yourself to win and hoping that you're right. On top of that, your bank might be low because you're still filling out your talent tree. Due to this, you've got more than enough reasons to be hesitant to throw away your essence re-rolling for just the right starter to get a great run. Well, lucky for you, there's a little trick to keeping your currency. You can re-roll as much as you want and get your essence back as long as you quit before leaving the first room. If you roll and don't get what you want before running out, just quit and try again. Mysterious Jokul doesn't only give you more elites to fight, but also gives you a 4th spiritual remnant to get a blessing from before Act 4. You still only have 3 blessing slots, so this will require losing one of the ones you're currently holding in exchange for a new one. Oftentimes this is more than okay because you might have taken a blessing that was good at the start, but want to trade it for something that's better at the end. If you want to try to go for the perfect run, you can step into the endless mode called Boundless Dream. It lets you loop back through the game with progressively more difficult fights. One cool thing is that you continue to get spiritual remnant offerings every couple of acts, which gives you a chance to get everything you desire. Just keep pushing forward, and you'll eventually get there. Last, there is a way to have 4 spiritual blessings, and it's called Lone Wolf Mode. It's for solo players only, but it lets you start with a permanently held general blessing at the cost of having to play at multiplayer difficulty settings. While that sounds like it would be hard, I really don't think it is. Potentially getting 4 blessings is an incredible boost, and it also makes it so that you can guarantee your first 2 with the tip before about re-rolling before the start. You should really give it a try. You might find it easier than playing without. I think that pretty much wraps up my thoughts for this video. In the future, I'd like to make more videos about each character and talk about their unique blessings, but I first want to talk about the rest of the Bizarre Dream modifiers. Try toying around with your favorite character's blessings and see what crazy messes you can make with it. Let me know in the comments what your favorite combinations are and if this video helped you at all. Thanks for watching all the way through. Try to drop by my stream sometime to catch me live where I do variety gaming. Thank you to the Patreon supporters for helping me do what I do, and join the Discord if you're 18 plus if you want to find people to play with. Until next time though, remember to take care of yourself and take care of those around you. Bye bye.